If I were to break these down, now maybe this would be a prototype for what Paul's transformation model would be. And it would be, I'm comparing things out of Romans chapter 5, out of Colossians, and I'm actually looking at all of Paul's writings now. I don't have the mental capacity to hold every word he said in my mind at the same time. And even while I'm going through this study, I come across, oh yeah, I forgot that was there. Okay, so that's kind of happening too. And this would be a great thing to study as a group, like an FSI or with the Ephesians 4:16 edification model, to go through this and like maybe say, Kevin, aren't you systematizing things? Okay, yeah, I am. And we have to recognize Goodhart's law, and we have to recognize that all models are wrong, some are useful. But so here's what am I trying to do? I talk about growth and development models a lot on the channel, and I do things, like I'm talking about Fowler's Stages of Faith, like this book right here. And yeah, he's a Christian, writing from a Christian perspective, but we also talk about spiral dynamics and integral theory and Erickson and Kohlberg and Piaget and these guys. And everyone, the moralistic stage 3 people, their first thought is to commit the genetic fallacy. And if they're not Christian, then we can throw out everything that they say. And we need to stop being like that. If you're like that, stop being like that. But what if instead of having Fowler's system of growth, what if we could actually produce Paul's system? What if Paul has more or less a growth model, a model of transformation that we can use to assess both ourselves and to understand where other people are coming from and maybe what their needs are, especially if you're a parent and you have kids. You want to understand where they are, what their needs are. Do they have love as a capacity at this point? Are they very self-centered? What needs to happen? And you can use, if you can break things down into a model, understand that it is insufficient to reality, never mistake the model for the territory, but it can also, but you got to work with something that your mind can wrap itself around. And we're working with a model that's built for action, not one that's built for propositional systematization and in-group normativity. So we're not looking at something static. We're looking at something for action. And this will be a living thing that we're constantly moving and growing, constantly working with, constantly comparing with our experience, constantly adapting. Okay, so we don't want to codify this. We don't want to create a version of this that's set in stone and we turn it into a dogma. And if you don't agree with this, you're not part of the group. Nothing like that. We don't do that. We advocate strongly against ever doing that with anything. So we're not advocating that, but we do think that if you're a teacher, if you're a Sunday school teacher, if you're a pastor, if you're a parent, if you're a friend, okay, it might help you to develop a friend of yourself and for yourself, if you're a spouse, anything, to look at some kind of model, start somewhere, and then use that to assess what you're missing, what you're lacking, what your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are, okay, a SWOT analysis, and then also lay out for yourself a set of actions or a prescription, if you will, that will help you fill in and get to what you are lacking. It'll help you identify the mark. What is the mark we should be pressing toward? What does that look like? And how can we get there? The draft model, call this a draft. And I would always operate in draft because you never want to get to the point where you've codified something and you can't be moved away from it. So the draft of this growth model would be something like faith as love and faith with love as an intention. So faith and love are going to come together because remember, the word believe, the English word believe, comes from the word beloved. So you can't really have faith without love, without at least the intent of love. And when we say faith, we're not talking about the affirmation of propositions. We're talking about the embodiment of trust, fidelity, and reliability, which you could not have without some kind of valence towards something which we're hoping is love and not something selfish. All right. And then you're going to go through something. So I have faith, and I'm going to, with hope, look forward to something, my transformed self, my kid's transformed self. I'm going to envision that. Now I'm going to relate to people things, and then I'm going to relate. That's where faith comes in. Faith could be seen as relating, based on what we talked about last time. And then I'm going to act. Love is action. It's one thing we talked about last time, and we also talked about how those can swap. How sometimes love is relating and faith is acting. And we gave passages for those two, and then we choose. We make choices. Now that's very, very important. So you're looking at 4 different things here: envisioning, relating, acting, and choosing. If you're going to do these things, you're choosing, your envision, what you envision comes up on the end state too. I'm envisioning what I'm supposed to be. I'm not pointing at this writing over here, just letting you know that the envisioning, what you envision, shows up over here too, because a class of the transcendent must precede the immanent. You envision something. Now, in order to bring that envisioned thing to pass, you're going to relate to people, you're going to act, and you're going to make choices. Those are like the 3 doing things that you're going to do. And then ultimately what you want to do is arrive at the thing that you envisioned to start with. So let's say you and your buddy are going to start a fitness goal, and you're, okay, I'm going to lose 30 pounds of fat and I'm going to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and I want to look a certain way within 18 months, something like that. So then you're going to relate to each other. You're also going to relate to, you might relate to the gym. You might relate to weights. You might relate to a home gym. You're going to relate to each other and to objects and items. And you're going to act. You're going to act in that relationship, and you're going to do things. And then at the end of that 18 months, where are you compared with what you envisioned for yourself before? Okay. How do you measure that? And how many different areas of life can you do this in? So you might also do this with your relationships, like with my spouse. Can I have a very serious discussion where something that I care about feels threatened, and maintain control of my limbic system and my vagal nerve and my impulses, and not react out of those things, but react in a better way, and like maybe flatline those things, like so where they inform you, they're not dead, but they inform you and they aren't deciding. Your limbic system isn't deciding how you act. For a child, the limbic system is deciding how they act. You want your limbic system to not be the thing deciding how you act, and you're a little further back than it. I was hanging out with somebody yesterday to where everything that it input to them was bouncing right off their limbic system, right back out at everybody else. It wasn't necessarily angry or cantankerous, but it was very self-centered view of how to interact with people. There was nothing going through the limbic system back to the prefrontal cortex, back to a set of wisdom skills, and then coming back out. It was just hitting the limbic system and bouncing off immediately back out to everybody else. And it's like dealing with a child. It can be annoying, it can be frustrating, it can be tedious, and there's a lot of folks that are like that. So you want to have the limbic system as something that's informing you. Okay, so maybe that's a goal. So a small goal, how can I have a discussion with my spouse, for example, about something that I care about, which I feel is threatened, while not reacting in my limbic system? That would be a goal to have. Then you're going to go through tribulations, where the thing that you care about is threatened. Let's say if you have a workout plan, let's say you pull a muscle and your shoulder doesn't work anymore and you need surgery. That's frustrating. You're going to develop patience. And your tribulations plus your patience is going to result in experience. Now, there's a word, I should probably write this up here. I'm not right-handed, and I'm trying to do this with my right hand. But problems. If you want something to grow from, think about a problem that needs to be solved. What is a problem in your life? What is a problem in somebody else's life? What's a problem in a system? What's a problem anywhere that you think you might be able to do something about? And it seems to be that when you voluntarily adopt responsibility to solve some kind of problem at some level, that is where this cycle occurs. This tribulations, patience, experience, and hope, which brings up, where am I here? The wisdom pattern. Are we familiar with the wisdom pattern? Especially if we have new folks, we need to understand the wisdom pattern. I'm looking for a slide that shows the wisdom pattern. There's so many slides here. There we go. Order, disorder, reorder. Basically, the pattern of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ is the pattern. And with that order, disorder, reorder, okay, what comes with the disorder? The thing that makes it tough is that there's failure, right? There's that's a little F for failure. There's betrayal, and there's injustice. Look at that. We have a new acronym for FBI. It might be a little thing that we can do here on Beyond the Fundamentals. That disorder comes with the FBI: failure, betrayal, and injustice. And that is what makes it so difficult to deal with, because if you've ever been betrayed, the last thing you want to do is love that person. If you've ever been the subject of injustice, the last thing you want to do is love those who caused the injustice. It's the last thing you want to do. But I'm telling you, that is the only path to waking up, especially for Americans. That's the path. That's the path to waking up. I was in a Catholic church yesterday. Notice this disorder thing here, okay? We talk about this a lot on our channel, this disorder concept. We don't like that. And the preaching of the cross is foolishness even to Christians, because they can't handle the disorder. I don't want any disorder. I want to build everything up, make everything bigger, better, faster, stronger. Modernism. That's what we want. Alexander the Great wisdom. Bigger, better, faster, stronger. Occupy everything. Agent Smith. Turn everything into something that looks just like ourselves. That's what we want. We don't want any disorder. We don't want FBI coming. Failure, betrayal, and injustice. We don't want that. And so the preaching of the cross is foolishness even to Christians, because the preaching of the cross isn't just that Jesus of Nazareth died and rose again. It's that Jesus said for you to take up your cross. And like the many passages that we've showed, where that suffering is embodied by us, bearing about in the body the dying of the Lord Jesus. Failure, betrayal, injustice. That what? The life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our body. Delivered unto death. That has to come first before the reorder can come, which is the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our mortal flesh. So we're talking about things that happen in your body while you're still alive on this planet, not just when you die and go to heaven. So I was sitting in this Catholic church in this wedding, and they had some really beautiful music, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful in there. And I'm looking up at this crucifix. And having a Baptist background, one of the first things I think about is how Baptists think of crucifixes. First of all, having any kind of icon to a Baptist is seen as idolatry. And then second of all, a Baptist will say, well, we shouldn't portray Christ on the cross because Christ is risen. And then something kind of hit me, is that I think there's some wisdom in portraying Christ on a crucifix, because, and the reason is this, it's a reminder to us of the suffering that we have to go through. When Jesus says, take up your cross, you're being reminded. So every time you walk into a Catholic church and you see that big prominent crucifix right in the middle of the altar, right in the front of the church, you can't miss it. It's right there. You have to look at it. It's a reminder that you have to take up your cross. And you have to suffer like that too. We don't like that. We don't want the FBI. We don't want failure and injustice and betrayal coming our way. We don't want that. And it made me think that, what if Baptists, we have a good post hoc rationalization for why we don't display crucifixes. It's idolatry because it's an image, and it's this and that, and Jesus has risen. We need to portray the risen Christ, not the dying Christ, that kind of thing. I think subconsciously, the preaching of the cross is foolishness to Baptists, and we cannot face the fact that we are to suffer for Christ. It's given unto you not only to believe on him, but to suffer for his sake. Philippians 1:29. We don't like the suffering. Get that crucifix out of my face. I don't want to be reminded that in order to believe on Jesus Christ, I am also expected to take up my cross and suffer in that way. So I had an experience yesterday. Like, I spent my entire life being against crucifixes because of the Baptist meme complex, what they say about them and polemic against them. And it hit me yesterday that, oh my, I've been failing to see this whole time. The crucifix is a reminder. It's a visual image reminder. We're visual people. A lot of us are anyway. It's a visual reminder of what you're signing up for if you've decided to follow Christ. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.